Excellent. Thank you everyone so much for coming again to another session of Game RT's Roundtable, the Twitch program where we bring together several librarians, get a chance to talk about games, libraries, games and libraries, and all the ways we can bring play into our spaces. Today we will be talking about International Games Month. I am Danielle Costello, the current Game RT event programming co-chair. I'm a research and instruction librarian from Louisiana State, where I teach library instruction, but today I'm your host as we explore all the fun and hard work that our guests have put into the various events. Guests, if you'd like to introduce yourself, starting with George, and then Molly and Amber.
All right, thank you, Danielle. My name is George Bergstrom. I am the Southwest Regional Coordinator for the Professional Development Office at Indiana State Library. Yes, it's a mouthful. Here at Game RT, I'm the president-elect, and this is going into my third year as chair of the International Games Month Committee, and I'll be talking more about that when we get to it.
Hi, I'm Molly Porter. I am an adult services and teen services librarian at the West Louisiana Parish Library in St. Francisville. And that's Louisiana, yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amber Sewell. I am a teaching and learning librarian at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. With Game RT, I am a current member at large and a member of the programming committee.
Excellent. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves all. So this event is being held live. However, if you need to leave or would like to watch it again, the Twitch on demand will be accessible right after we end. And if you aren't following us on Game RT, please follow so you can see more of the intersection of libraries and games, and links to all the places where you can find us, from our blog to Facebook to Discord, will be posted in chat throughout the session. So check those out as well. And if you aren't previously familiar with Games RT, we are the Game and Gaming Roundtable of the American Library Association. Our mission is to promote gaming in libraries, whether that's programming, collection development, community building, prototyping, playtesting, research, or a whole month of games for everybody to enjoy in our communities. We've got you covered. Before I go into today's session, there is one event we'd like you to know about at the end of this month on January 31st from 12 to 1 p.m. We'll have a Learn and Play on Trivia where I and past President Thomas Voss will be exploring the eclectic world of trivia. Links to registration can be added in the chat, so please join us so that way we can see who can be the most brilliant at obscure facts and win glory in that area. That all said, please put your questions in chat. We will ask them as we go through the entire session. This is going to be a very relaxed one, so let's get into it. To start, George, since you are the on the chair of the International Games Month, can you tell us about what this event is for folks who might not know it and why we have it?
Sure. So last year was the first year we officially celebrated it as a month-long event. But kind of going back to that history, 2007 was the first year the event was held, and back then it was National Games Day. The participation has been lost to the annals of time, unfortunately, but for 5 years it was a national event here in the United States, with peak participation as a single day event in 2010. There were over 1,880 libraries participating. In 2012, they officially extended it to International Games Day, although from what I've learned, there were international partners in the last couple of years when it was still a national event. But for 5 years, it was celebrated as International Games Day, 2012 to 2016. And that in that time period is when we actually hit our high. 2015, they had 2,157 libraries around the world celebrating. In 2017, officially it became International Games Week. So the first full week in November, I think it was the first Saturday in November for those first 10 years. So in 2017, a week. And then of course, with the pandemic, 2020 and 2021, even though we still called it International Games Week, we were being really lenient and letting the libraries celebrate pretty much any time during the month of November. And so last year, sort of keeping in that 5-year cycle, and to make it more official, we've extended it to International Games Month. In that time, we encourage libraries to celebrate just about any type of gaming. They can have any programs they want. And I guess I'll leave it there for now, and we'll kind of come back to the rest of that.
Sounds excellent. Thank you so much, George, for the summary and a little bit history of that.
Mhm.
So both Amber and Molly, you've had events in your libraries, and I'd love to dig into kind of what you had and kind of why you decided to have those programs for your library. So either whoever would like to go first, and then we'll roll into the next.
I can go first.
There you go.
So we did a variety of events. I pitched the idea and largely planned it. We had our engagement and outreach coordinator. I don't think that's his official title, but he helped me with it. So I wanted to go I wanted to set a low bar since this was our first time doing anything like this. Did I succeed? Probably not. So we kicked things off with mini golf on Halloween. So we encouraged people to come in their costumes, play mini golf, and then we were giving out resources about the events for International Games Month there. We had some pop-up events where we had our peer coaches, which are students who work for the library, take like cornhole and Jenga and take them outside and play, like invite people who are walking by the library to play. We had a game jam game design competition, 2 board game nights. One was specifically marketed for first generation students and the other was open to everybody. And then I did host a virtual RPG session, which we can get into later. It was an interesting time. But that one I ran Honey Heist for a group of students.
Excellent. Sounds like you had a full slate. And Molly, how about your library?
Yeah, so we also actually kicked off at the end of October and had a Halloween themed games night. So we did Werewolf and Monstrosity, and they really enjoyed that. And then in November, we had 2 board game nights, and we had a few new games, so they were really excited for that. And that was just our pretty regular attendance team group. And then we had a 1-page RPGs night, which was fun. And we ended up doing a business card size one instead. And it was Tiniest Wizard. And I could get into the shenanigans and antics, but I don't want to take all of our time talking about their nonsense. It was a lot of fun. They really enjoyed it. And we also have a new Nintendo Switch that our friends of the library donated to us. And so we had a Switch games night, which they loved. And yeah, they're just really excited for doing a lot of new stuff next year too.
Excellent. So of those kind of programs, what do you think were the most successful? And George, you can chime in as well from what you've heard from the community of what kinds of games do really, or gaming events do really well during the programming.
Sure. So from what I've seen on the surveys, obviously any event that brings people together seems to do well. That's probably one of the reasons why attendance has been down the past few years because of the pandemic and not being able to get together as much. So hopefully as things start to improve, we can get those numbers back up. Other things that I think, at least from the program wide, other things that I think tie to success are when we as a committee try to have a unifying event or activity. So the couple of years where the participation was the highest, I am almost positive those tie to the years when one of our Australian compatriots put together the Global Gossip Game, 2014, 2015, and I think maybe 16, he pulled that off. So even though that was a single day event, that helped really encourage libraries around the world to sign up. So we're always looking for things like that to kind of bring back to each year. And so this year we attempted our first game jam, and Amber mentioned they tried that as well. Hopefully that kind of helped. So yeah, things that bring your community together, and hopefully from us as the committee standpoint, unifying activities that maybe lots of people around the country or the world can participate in.
Awesome. Molly, Amber, any particular successes you want to chat about?
I think the thing that surprised me is that they still just really like the board game nights. Like we have the fancy new Switch and like, don't get me wrong, they love it and everything, but they're still requesting more board game nights specifically. But I was really glad that they like Tiniest Wizard and they like playing those kind of different format RPGs, because a lot of our teens are also in the D&D group that I lead. And so it was nice to see them kind of branch out and do different things, try different things. And to be able to do it with a more broad audience was good.
Yeah, I think on my end, our board game nights, we did have a Wii set up in the background as well. And those, I don't do outreach programming events very often. So this is like my first big foray into it. And so the board game nights were really nice because people would walk in, students were mostly walking in solo. They would go to the Wii because it was pretty basic. They all knew how to use it. And then somebody else would walk in and go straight to the Wii. And so they would make friends over the Wii and then go pick a board game together afterwards, which was beautiful.
Love that.
We also had our peer coaches attend the board game nights, which was really nice because they could be like, hey, we're here, let's play a game. And I'm somebody your age, not like the 30-year-old librarian sitting at front doing the door count. So students really were like, we didn't hear about this, we were just walking by, please do more of these, which was great. Our game design competition, the participants had a lot of fun. We had some challenges with marketing and like letting people know we were going to host it. But the game design competition, like, the students loved it. I've got one team that came to an event last week and they were like, when are you going to do it again? Because we can do better. And so both of those went really well. Like at the end of the game jam, the student was like, I really think that you should leverage all of your resources at UNLV. You've got a patent and trademark center. We've got a lot of entrepreneurs around here. Like, I want you to bring in game publishers to help fund the event and like work with us after we do cool things. So like,
I love your kids.
it
That's
was
amazing.
beautiful. They took like, I was like, let's just make games and have fun. And they're like, no, let's like take this
Hustle.
up a couple of notches. And I was like, well, okay. So we might be doing another one this spring, just because students had such a good time.
Yeah, and that's something that can tie well for libraries of all types, but especially academic libraries. I have never seen this with International Games Month, but I have certainly worked with libraries in the past who tied game nights to career readiness, and they would try to bring in experts from the game industry to talk about which classes in the curriculum would be really good if you want to come work for us.
Nice.
So yeah, any way you can tie gaming and game events back to practical skills really impresses the administrators.
Mhm.
Good tip. Although it does get confusing here in Vegas because they're like, gaming is
Oh.
gambling.
Yeah.
Same in Louisiana.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
No, I'd never run into that till I got here. I was like, they have a gaming library. It's like not that kind of gaming.
No, not that way. No, we're away from the river, not near those. We do have a question in chat. Molly, what were the popular board games that you had? What was most like picked up? And then to you as well, Amber, from a different library. What were yours?
My kids really love Ticket to Ride and Catan. And I have one that is obsessed with Villainous, the Disney Villainous game. And then let's see, there were a couple of others. I have one kid that only ever wants to play checkers, and they want to play checkers all the time. And though I think our most popular game across like all of our teens is Snake Oil, which is a card game, where you are trying to pitch like a nonsense product with like word cards to a customer, and it's just bonkers, and they come up with the weirdest, most crazy stuff, and they love it. So
if you want to level that up, I have used that with entrepreneurship classes, and the professor and I were the angel investors, and so it wasn't just that a random student had to pick the best. It was you have to pitch to us, and we'll decide if it's a good product or not. So
very fun.
Communication, critical thinking, you are embedding all those skills into them when they play a game like that. It's pretty cool.
And Molly, remind me again, you're a public library, right?
Yeah, I'm a public library. We're a small rural library, so it's a
Mhm.
one branch system. It's really tiny. We're lucky if we have more than 10 people, So yeah.
And then Amber, with your academic library, do you notice a similar kind of pattern or a different pattern in the games that folks like during that?
We actually have a fairly small game collection. We polled our peer coaches to get suggestions for what they wanted us to purchase. Exploding Kittens, very big hit. Jenga, and we have an operation that is Baby Yoda. And so those were really good for people to like wander in and they're like, I already know how to do this. And then as people joined, they could again go like check out a new game together. But those were the top 3 most popular is like Baby Yoda, Operation, Jenga, and Exploding Kittens.
I love it. I think the classics are always going to be classics, and should
Mhm.
Jenga, checkers have a place. But then there's some fun nonsense that's out there where people like to be silly when they're playing games. I think my biggest one was cockroach poker when I was at Valdosta. Cockroach poker is kind of the essence of a lying game. It's the distilled, if you've ever played Sheriff of Nottingham, it's
Oh
distilled
yeah.
into its core part of you're just lying to each other.
Okay.
Or not lying. I never lie. I completely tell the truth every single time. This is what I tell everybody as I go in. I'm going to tell you the truth, and it's your own fault. And you get their heads. It's delightful. So going into your programs and what you did, were there any challenges with that was through administration, planning, buy-in? Were there any kind of complications as you made your events for International Games Month? And then we'll get to you, George, on a slightly similar but different question.
I think we had several challenges. One, just being an academic library, November is kind of a terrible time to do programming. So students were like, we only had one full week because there were so many holidays. We're working on our finals. Like, they were like, this is just, especially for the game jam, they were like, please don't do this in November again. I was like, okay, noted. So just the timing was challenging for an academic library. We had challenges with getting the word out to students. We put it in the student newsletter. The game jam, again, in particular, like students only got word of it like a week before the sign up. So that posed some unique challenges. We only had 2 teams participate. I had another challenge, and the challenge with the RPGs. I tried to do one in person during our board game night for everybody, and then a virtual one. And I think with this student population, they're not familiar with role-playing games. So I had one person sign up for the in-person one, and they showed up half an hour late, and I was like, no, y'all, I need this full time to run a game. We can't do one in half an hour, like full time. And then the virtual one, only one participant had played a role-playing game before, so they were like camera on, mic on, and then one person, as soon as I was like, hey, you can keep your camera off, but you're probably going to want to be on the mic to chat, y'all are heisting, you got to make plans. One person dropped, and then the other person was like, I'm going to stick to just using the chat the entire time. So it was okay. I mean, there were times that the person and I chatting were both like waiting on a response from the chat. So I think our students just really aren't familiar with what TTRPG is. And so I have to take that into consideration for future events. Like I'd still love to do more, but I'm going to have to familiarize students with the entire concept a little more before trying to run some programming.
I think for us, we have a couple of challenges, and this is more broad for us in terms of programming, but specifically advertising can be difficult. We don't have a lot of internet in this parish. And so we'd love to just do the traditional like Facebook ad kind of thing. But if the majority of our population cannot regularly get on Facebook unless they're already in our building, then it's not going to be the most convenient. So that's part of it. But the other thing that's more game specific is that we have a pretty wide range of ages. So our youngest is 11 and our oldest is 18. And they're all wonderful and I love them all, but they have very different approaches to playing games and different levels of understanding when they're playing games. And so I would say more during the one-shot RPGs night, it was definitely noticeable for me and the other teen librarian who was like not quite getting it and needed a little bit of a helping hand as we were playing. But yeah, I mean, it made it definitely a little bit more chaotic, but they all had fun. And, you know, bless them. They're all just like, yeah, this didn't work at all, but it was okay. We'll do it again, you know?
The best kind of feedback.
Yeah, they're really great. But yeah, it's just trying to find things that work for those different ages, which I think is why the board game nights work really well for us, because they can all kind of group off and do their own thing, you know,
Yeah.
instead of us trying to have them all do the same thing right now, you know? Yeah.
Excellent. And on kind of that same vein, but George, you're in charge of an entire committee that's trying to work and organize all this together. So tell us a little bit about the committee work of pulling it together and the kind of major challenges you face.
So the major challenge is finding enough library employees who have the time to volunteer to be on the committee, and the international partners, obviously. We have, in the entire time I've been doing it, we've had a great partner at a UK library. And I mentioned Phil in Australia. He has attempted to connect back with us after several years off, but has not quite connected back with the committee as much as either I or he would like, I believe. But yeah, and of course, trying to bring this back from the pandemic and, you know, what it was before. I was not on the committee before, so I don't know exactly how things ran. I tried to participate 1 year before, and my feeling as a participant was there were a lot more sponsors and there was a lot more opportunities for free stuff. I have been trying to bring that back, but it's tough. You know, every company's dealing with supply chain and inflation and all that stuff that we can get into that stuff more. But yeah, planning around every type of library and all around the world is also a real challenge. So
I do like that it's an international event. I feel that's one of the special things, is to be part of a thing that everybody else is doing simultaneously around the world. Makes me feel very, very good and special. Was that kind of put across? Did folks kind of jive with that when you were talking about the event to your patrons, Molly and Amber? Or were they just like, yay, games?
Yeah, mine were just like, yay games. This is an excuse to like have fun and play games. When I was like, oh, this is part of International Games Month, we'd really like to hear your all's thoughts. So maybe we can do this every year. They were just like, the international piece just like went over their heads, but you know, fine. You're here to play games. I love that goal.
That's fair.
Yeah, my internet is kind of spotty, so if there's like a moment where I'm just like silent and awkward, that's why. But yeah, I think very similar for us. The international part was just kind of not the main focus for our kids. They were just more yay games. But actually this month, we're starting to plan for summer reading, and the summer reading theme for CSLP this year is all together now. And so I think we're going to try to do some stuff over the summer that can also be applicable. Like if it works well over the summer, then we'll try to bring it back for International Games Month. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you all mentioned a lot of different programs. Were you able to tie those into events that were already going on in your library? Like, let me get a 2-for-1. Like, obviously there's Halloween and lots of programs happen during Halloween time, but were there any other events that you're like, I will get 2 planning bits done?
I know for me, November is always kind of a dead month, because the holidays are just, you know, it just makes programming around that time of the year really hard. And I can imagine it's worse in an academic library where everyone's already freaked out, you know. So the Halloween start off was kind of the easy benchmark for us. But then after that, it was just like looking for time where everyone was free and weren't like traveling, you know.
Yeah, academic libraries, not a ton of programming is going on in November. Our de-stress stuff is in December during like finals week. Otherwise that would tie in really well. And we did tell people like for de-stress, we usually do a board game night. So we were like, hey, if you've enjoyed this, come back in December. And honestly, one of my biggest mistakes is I was just like, I'm in my own little game world. I'm doing games. And I forgot to tell other people in the library I was doing it. So I forgot to send a list to like the liaisons to be like, hey, we're having game events if you want to like work this in and tell your people about it. So that's definitely got a star on the list of planning for next year's, like tell people in the library what you're doing so they can be like, oh, we're also interested in this. Let's collaborate.
That actually leads very well into, I would love to learn what your lessons learned, what your kind of future goals are for the next set of event or the next year. And we can start with George because I want to hear what the big things that we have going on.
So this year, so last year, as I said, the Games Jam was sort of the brand new thing. Right now, we don't necessarily have a brand new hook for this year. So if anyone wants to be on the committee or help out, I encourage you to get a hold of me. Hopefully Danielle drops our contact info somewhere. If not, just
It is
come.
there.
Yeah, awesome. So we're going to try a Games Jam again, obviously. We're going to try to keep putting print and play and other free resources up on the website. One thing that we may try that is slightly different this year, we got some comments on the survey from last year about having either a website entirely dedicated to patron/user focus or a section of it that you could point your patrons to. So we may try to section the website differently this year so that here's a piece that you can directly link to or point your patrons to or whatever. That are gaming resources for all to use, and then here's the stuff that maybe only the librarians want to use. So that's like the biggest change I know we're working on right now. Obviously, the sponsorship is still really early days. So if we get a great sponsor or we get someone who wants to up their participation, that might help improve things. I know another comment we get a lot of is, if I don't sign up by the early deadline to get on a list for free stuff, what's the point of signing up? And we as a committee really struggle for that. I mean, other than helping us by getting your name on our list, I don't know what we can say that you get out of it, you know? So again, hopefully some digital tools and resources. If we do those changes that were suggested for patron focused, we may remove or change the way you get access to the librarian stuff. And maybe you have to be registered to get that stuff. I mean, that's, to me, that feels more like a stick and not a carrot. But if people think of it as a carrot, I'm all for it. But again, we've only had one meeting so far. It's still really early days. So if anyone has ideas, we'd love to hear.
Or if anyone would like to join Games and Gaming Roundtable and International Games Month, there is a space for you.
Absolutely.
Always pitching. And Molly, how about you? Any ideas about what you want to do going forward? Like any new games you want to get or programming?
Oh, I want to get all the games, but I'm going to set that aside. I think next year we're going to try to have a game jam. Because my kids have expressed a lot of interest in it, but I would also like to expand to more age groups. And so I think we're going to try to do a checkers tournament in the park down the road and hope for the best. We thought about chess, but not as many people know how to play chess. So I think checkers is more, you know, accessible for now, at least. But yeah, I just want to try to branch out to as many subsets of our population as I can, you know, to reach people we haven't reached yet.
Awesome. And you, Amber, thoughts?
I have all the thoughts and plans and ideas. One of them, George, you mentioning like what can people get out of it for signing up? I'd be really interested to see if there's like any way to connect library types. Like as an academic library, I would love to know how others are kind of meeting the challenges and like what kind of programming they're doing. I know my old institution, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, did programming for international games week back then when I
Yes.
worked there, but it would be nice to be like, what are other academic librarians doing?
Yep. Allison was awesome.
She is so great. So great. Ideas for moving forward. We're going to move the game jam out of November. It just was like bad timing. One thing that came up is maybe doing an information session on TTRPGs before programming. So maybe in October being like, hey, we're going to do some of these. Come and learn what a TTRPG is. Let us know what games you'd like to play. I have a little library of RPGs that I put together. So letting people get familiar with the format, I think that would help encourage participation, because I do think once they know what it is, November is going to be a good time to be like, yeah, I'm in the library, may as well go play a game for 2 or 3 hours. I'm interested in trying out a showcase for instructors on games they could incorporate into their class. I don't know if November would be the best time for it, again, with like the timing of the semester, but it would be a fun way to gauge interest in that kind of thing.
We've thought of at Valdosta, haven't implemented that thought yet at LSU, but the thought was we would have a kind of a charity type thing where we could showcase the games to any like how you have charity nights. It's like, okay, pick whatever game you want. We will run that game and have that game night for you. So that way the instructors have a fun night out. They can enjoy themselves. We can showcase, look, we're great partners with you. Like we can teach the games to your students, because I've totally done that before. I think a lot of it is intimidation for instructors. Like our instructors are already way overstressed. It's like,
Yeah,
let me take this piece away from you. We can do the showcasing and the teaching if you just give us the space.
beautiful. I've taken so many notes.
One of my favorite parts about RTRT. It's like, oh
I-
yes, let's do all the good things. Oh, go ahead, George.
I was gonna say, I have never implemented this, but I have thought about it and recommended it to a few academics that if assessment is a big thing, and of course nowadays it is, cooperative board games can be used to assess teamwork skills and collaboration instead of the self-reflection essay where of course every student's going to say, well, of course I worked as a team, and of course I pulled my weight in the. You could actually have them playing a cooperative board game and have TAs and or faculty kind of observing or watching.
Well,
Or instead of the self-reflection just being a general self-reflection paper, it would be the student has to write a paper breaking down the gameplay, and this is how we work together as a team, you know.
oh yeah, 100%. Or you could have one of those little inner rubrics where you're playing against the game. Cross Clues does that, where it's like, you did so-so, and it's like, I don't want to do just so-so. We're playing this game 6 more times till I get you're amazing. So it's that like, you cooperated okay-ish, you were excellent, might be, that internal scale as well. But yeah, it's the idea of being able to connect with people through games and gameplay, I think, is one of my favorite. Like it's just such a perfect way to build community and build connection. Molly, I want to know more about like so you did the TTRPGs with your kids. Which ones did you play, or was that you were interested in them with your group?
I think my internet cut out. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the first
No
half of
problem. You mentioned you did some TTRPGs as well with your group. What were the titles that you played? Was it also indie stuff, or was it Dungeons and Dragons?
that. So we do have a regular D&D group that meets every other week. But the ones that I brought to them for that event were Tiniest Wizard, which I've already talked about, and Honey Heist and Goat Crashers, which is also a Grant Howitt game. Yeah. And we ended up deciding on Tiniest Wizard, but we didn't have time to run more than that because we've got like 2 hours with them, So they just got really into Tiniest Wizard and were like resurrecting 1920s Russian circus men and like all kinds of nonsense. It was very fun. But there was enough interest that I think we're going to run it again.
Okay.
So
'Cause that was kind of like what I was wanting to lead into is like, did they understand TTRPGs, or was it another case of we have to explain these indie, the whole experience of the game to them as well?
most of them got it because again, there's a good amount of overlap between our D&D group and our teen group. But again, that's where the age gap thing came in, and the younger kids, it took them a little while to understand what was going on. But once they got it, they were really having fun. And the ones that didn't get it, like the whole way through, were still having fun and were very excited to like draw their little wizard on their business card and just like say silly things and run around. So yeah.
Excellent. George, how of the libraries that kind of participate, do we have internal assessment of what the games that they're playing, or kind of what programming, or just like they participated in the event and they had fun?
So in the initial registration, for those who are familiar, you do indicate size of your collection and types of events you think you're going to run. And then in the follow-up survey, you are asked what types of programs or events you did run. Most of that is open text field form. And of course, it's all voluntary. So we get usually 1 or 2% of the people who registered actually fill out the follow-up survey, probably because it's now the beginning of December and, you know, holidays. And we usually have kept that running through the end of the year and even into the new year, depending on, you know, I think last year I didn't get it out till mid-December. So it probably is technically still open, but maybe 55 of the 600 libraries actually filled it out. So, and sometimes they'll mention the name of a game, but it's usually just, I had this many programs, we had this many participants. And then once in a while you get a really juicy quote of how a patron really enjoyed it or something like that. But
Awesome. Because I'm wondering if we could use these type of events for collection development or kind of direction going forward, like kind of post assessment for our International Games Month to help with those collections. Have either of you thought of that for your, if you've done assessment for your games programming, if you're going to use it towards just more programming or assessment of the collection kind of purposes? And we'll swing it to Amber. There we go.
Assessment is very loose. I did a head count and then I printed a paper survey for students at the game night events to just be like, how did you hear about this? What did you do while you were here? Are there any games you'd like us to buy? So I think especially the what games would you like to see can be informed to make purchases for further game nights. And I think just the enthusiasm of students, I'm definitely going to lean into that qualitative data to be like, look, these students really enjoyed it. And these are just the people who were walking by and saw a sign and decided to stop in. So once we're able to figure out how to best market this, this could really be a bigger thing. I think it helped that the dean came down and like put on the VR headset and was like having a good time with Fruit Ninja. And so she was able to see like the students hanging out. But yeah, definitely. I think moving forward, I'll have to figure out like maybe more in-depth assessment. But yeah, we'll probably use it for informing game purchases for next year and just trying to bump up some programming.
Excellent. And Molly, I know you want to buy all the games.
Yes, I do want to buy all the games. But right now, I mean, the things we're getting are based partially on circulation numbers and partially on teen advisory board meetings. So we have that like once a month, just right before teen night. And we just talk to them about what works, what doesn't work, what they would enjoy, what they have already liked, you know, that kind of thing. And that's when they shout at me about like the 3 games they want to play all the time. And that really helps to determine what we are purchasing in the future. Yeah. Because they have a lot of ideas, which is good. I want their ideas. So
I love that you have such strong programs and strong connections with your groups. Any cool things that you're thinking that you saw another library do that you're like, I didn't do that this year, but next year, that cool thing, like, which I'm just going to steal your mini golf, Amber, just straight up to steal that. That's excellent and perfect for my library as well.
yes, the mini golf sounds fabulous. Yeah, okay. So I think for us, it's definitely the game jam. Also, there is a library in South Carolina, also a public library, that has their own convention, and it's called ShushCon, which sounds wonderful, right? That's the best name. And it's like a 3 or 4 day event, and they have tournaments and, you know, like the kinds of programs we've already been doing. But there's like prizes and there's incentives, and I do like the idea of incentivizing it somehow. I just don't know yet what that would look like, but it seems really fun, and I think that we'd be able to draw more people in with that too.
Excellent. Amber, George, any cool things that you've seen?
Oh boy. I guess connecting with other groups in the community is pretty cool. I mean, I know there are some libraries here in Indiana that take their stuff into the schools, which if that can be done, which I know every community can't do that, but when it can be done, it's pretty awesome. Obviously, post-pandemic, I know a lot of libraries that had used that time to develop online, you know, events and activities that they're just continuing so that they don't have to travel to the building, which is great for people without cars and kids who, you know, might not have as many advantages as some of the rest of the community. So, I mean, that can be a kind of a good win. Obviously, the committee, we're focused on trying to get the event back to pre-pandemic and maybe even pre-downturn days of hopefully over 1,000 libraries participating. I'd love to see, and the number itself is not as important, I guess, as the reach. I mean, with better advertising and maybe with different sponsors, I'm sure we could get back over 1,000 easily just in the US. I'd really like to get back to, you know, the days where we had participation on all 7 continents, and hopefully, you know, libraries that are sharing stories from all around the world. So
Ooh, that might be a fun thing for international, like kind of back end. What do you get is all the cool stories that we have afterwards, or the resources that we gathered of all the fun events that people bring in. And then Amber.
Yeah, I think for me, most of the spaces where I saw people talking about their programming was public libraries, which were really cool. I just need to have more students show up to events. And so the things that like, maybe I'll just like see what we can do next year to bump up our marketing and then see if I can get enough people. One thought, not necessarily library inspired, but Game RT inspired, is giving more online participation. And so creating a game that lasts throughout the month, similar to what Game RT has done for Live Learn X and Annual in the past, is something that I think could be a little more time intensive for the fall semester, but would be really fun to see if that's another way to get students to participate, and maybe even emphasize the international nature of International Games Month.
Yeah, we do generally have international student bodies. I have thought about running a game night for just international students to let them connect to the campus as well. So that would be a brilliant, brilliant idea. We're getting close to time, so about 15 minutes left. Plenty of time to talk more about our shenanigans, but also chat if you'd like to put any questions, please feel free. We will answer as well as we are able. Let's see, moving on. I've gone through most of my questions, huzzah, but I would love to talk more about the actual kind of nuts and bolts of what you were doing. Was there did you try and generally do costs that were like lower cost games? Were you able to get any funding, that kind of thing? Because I know a lot of libraries, it's like, we're just going to do this on a shoestring budget and kind of hope for the best. So let us know how is like the funding for your events gone. We'll go back to Molly.
I keep forgetting that if I'm typing in chat and I press the space bar, it's not going to unmute me. Okay. Yeah, we are lucky to have a really robust Friends of the Library group that helps with funding. So that hasn't been as much of a concern. That being said, I'm the one who started the board game collection here, and it's taken some convincing, you know, and I still need to be able to show like, hey, people are checking these out, you know, and people do want these things. And they have, and it's worked out and it's been great. But that does mean that sometimes I try to do a more economical thing. And that's where I was getting like the one-page RPG kind of ideas, you know,
Smart.
because that's the kind of thing that I can run with little to no budget at all, except like the snacks that all of them are going to eat, you know, but that's an 18 program. So I feel like that's a really good option. If you are trying to do something that's on the cheaper end. But again, I really liked the idea that Amber had about having the session ahead of time saying, hey, here's what a TTRPG is. Here's how you go about playing. Because I think that that would have really helped us to have that before the one-shot night.
And George, if you'd like to talk about the things we do give libraries for free during International Games Month.
Yeah, absolutely. So the years that were peak, I'm sure were the years that they were able to wrestle the most sponsors, as I think I've already said. One thing to keep in mind is that because participation has been lower over the last couple of years, I believe every US library that has signed up has gotten at least one game. And some libraries, especially this past year, where we had a couple of publishers who sent out packages of more than one game, some libraries got more than one game. So at least for the next couple of years, I would strongly encourage people to register as soon as they see it. We usually try to get that stuff out on the listservs and on the webpage around the time of ALA Annual. And usually we can take registrations through mid to late September into early October to be guaranteed to be on the list for names being drawn. And I hope that will continue this year and maybe for the next couple of years now. If I and the committee is lucky and we get higher numbers, maybe the chances start dropping a little bit, but always the earlier register, the more likely you are to get on a list to receive free stuff. 2 years ago with the pandemic, we started adding free resources. So the print and plays and some other things that people can find online that they can do for fairly low to no cost. And we try to feature 6 or 7 new games each year on that list, but all the past lists should be available as well. So, you know, you're going to have your 6 to 7 new print and plays this year, plus 3 years it'll be by at that point of past print and play resources that are available, and other activities that we can sort of suggest and ways to share your stuff online, and all those resources which are free to anyone who participates. I would also use this to remind people the Game On grant, which I believe is open now or will be open soon.
Very soon.
Libraries can apply for that grant from Game Roundtable. And if you're selected, you get, I think it's $500, but it's some nice amount of money, whatever it is this year, which you can then go to use to start a collection. And as we as a roundtable try to increase our grant money and our sponsors, that hopefully will increase the opportunities libraries have to get stuff at lower costs or no cost.
Fingers crossed. And
Yep.
Amber, how'd you do with your library?
Gonna be honest, I still like try to avoid money things. Like it's just somewhere. So I went in expecting to not be able to spend money. We have a non-circulating game board collection that we have for student events. So that's what we used. But we do have an outreach budget, which is mostly what was used to purchase the new games, snacks. We used stuff that we already have for student events. And then our game jam was in collaboration with our makerspace. So each team got $25 that they could spend on makerspace resources. And then the winning team was awarded $25. And so that was out of the outreach budget as well. One team definitely took advantage of that. One team spent $1.25 and just basically like scrounged spare pieces from around the makerspace.
Yes.
A lot of origami skills with the prototyping materials that don't cost anything. So yeah, we just used from our outreach budget. That is like a word that was thrown around, and I was just like, cool, that's a thing. I don't know how much money's in it or how much I can use, but we'll think about that more next time.
Honestly, I'm right there with you. I'm like, money. Let's do RPGs, and the theater of the mind is the best place to hang out. I can have any resource I want there.
100%. Although I do want the little whiteboard erase grids for TTRPGs. Somebody
be
brought
good.
that to a personal game that I played, and it's like, I want this for the library for events.
They are delightful. I love them so, so much. Although mine get very like and then it's just nonsense. Just not like you've played games with me. You've seen my mind. It's like, no, Danielle's map is not useful at all. And I see no questions in chat. I'll give you guys a chance to shout out what you're most proud of. I think that's one of the fun things, is to be able to create these events and just have kind of a moment that you're like, the students were amazing. I was awesome. Let me know. Molly, let's go with you again. We'll just keep going in the same order.
Probably the zombie RPG that I wrote, because it's the first time I'd really done that. But also, they started getting interested in writing their own games right then. Like, that's why I think we'll be able to run a game jam, is because they were like, oh wow, that sounds really fun, when we were going through that process. So that was probably the biggest thing. We're also about to have a masquerade mystery party in February that I'm very excited for. So fingers crossed, it might be terrible, but
No,
we'll
amazing.
see.
Looking forward to it.
Mhm.
And George?
So for me, I guess it's keeping IGM alive over the last 2.5, 3 years. I'm sure it wouldn't have died entirely if I hadn't been involved, but I think it would have suffered greatly because in 2020 we didn't really have a chair, and obviously the pandemic hit, and so that year was a little rough, but hopefully it's coming back. Personally, in gaming and libraries, it's just the continued use of games for non-gaming things. As I've said a few times, the soft skill strengthening, and I've done a webinar. I hosted a webinar where someone talked about TPRBTs as a professional development for their student workers. That was a pretty good webinar, and Diane is going to do a cataloging the life of a collection webinar for us in May. I think it's May. So pay attention to that one, coming soon.
I love it. Thank you so much for working forever, George.
Yeah, that's right.
George
Until
is
my
behind the scenes doing so much.
until my year is up and then I'm dead, right? Isn't that what
Yep.
we said? Yeah. Okay.
We kill all of our past presidents, and then we have a murder mystery. So if
Okay.
you want to join Games RT, do know we are the best, most fun roundtable around. But you're gonna work forever.
And then we're gonna kill you.
And then Amber, after that
And then-
delightful announcement.
I was gonna say, and then make your ghost work. Yeah, I think mine's tied. One was the brainstorming session we held as like a wrap up for the game jam, just like hearing the students get so excited and bring their ideas, and then that bouncing off of like the head of the makerspace and my supervisor. And it's just like, okay, I thought I was going to be the only one really into this, but like I'm seeing other people and they're really excited. And then the other was just like watching students come into the board game events by themselves and then leave like exchanging contact information with other students. It is beautiful. Yeah, it made my heart happy to watch like students walk out after playing a board game together. They walked in strangers and now they're like, let's hang out.
Did the good work, Amber.
Great.
Excellent.
As you're talking about that in the game jam, I totally get why November is not great for the actual design of the game, but I was just kind of thinking, if you could get them back in November to present or talk about their games, maybe even, and this would be another way to fool the administrators. If I've seen libraries where students do poster presentations for like normal academic projects, but if they did a poster presentation of their game design, I mean, that's like serious academic skills being wrapped up in something that's cool and game related.
You are preparing them from undergraduate research symposium, Amber.
Exactly.
right.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I know you said you didn't like the money, but if you get prizes, you know.
I like the money. I just don't like thinking about the money.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a really
Yeah.
good idea. And we talked about having the winning team fully funding them creating the game board, like the game as they envisioned it, and then adding that to the collection of games that we bring out for board game events. We'd have like a featured student-made collection. So November could be a good time to like highlight all that.
Yeah.
No, this people on this round table are just so smart. Just so smart. I love it.
Love it. That's good, good brainstorming time. Actually, I was like, oh wait, no, I want nope. Gotta host. Can't get into a brainstorm again. It's like 20 different ideas. Like, well, we could do this. Like those events where you have the presentation, where it's like present on anything and make it fun and silly.
Yes.
Yes.
It's good soft skills. They're all gonna have to present eventually in college.
Mhm.
But I think that comes to the end of our presentation today. So I'm going to give last words to everybody who wants to shout something out, or if they just want to, we just want to end it here. I am good to go. There's no more questions in chat. Excellent.
Just
go
thank
ahead, George.
everyone. I'll just thank everyone for coming today. And if you want to learn more about Game RT, definitely check us out.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you so much, guests, for coming, presenting to us, telling us about your International Games Month of kind of events and experiences. I want to thank everyone in chat. I want to thank our moderator in chat, Rebecca Strang. I didn't give her a shout out yet, but I'm making her work forever. It is brilliant and wonderful. So please join us for another event next week. We're very excited about trivia, but until then, this has been Games RT. Take care, everyone.